Oops. Hey, Fall Knight. Oops. And I interchangeable anyway. Okay. Just waiting a little. Just waiting a few things. Interview starts when just a few more people show up. Just a few. Just a smidge. Just a tiny bit of people. Hey, guys. Just making sure some things are good to go. Show me the Scotsman. Give me a moment. We're waiting on a few people, my guy. Oh, shit. We got people in? Okay, okay. Stream thing. Why you always lying? I haven't caught you on Twitch before. What do you typically game? I typically game shooters, horror games, platformers. Gonna be doing more Pokemon Nuzlockes here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Aside from what's been going on down in America, my day has been fine. Let us get our boy on the other side. My fellow Scotsman. Let's give him a call, why don't we? Hello!
Hello!
Sorry about the camera. I've been trying to figure out why I can't do my camera on Discord and can only do it on my stream. I do not recommend watching my stream while you're talking to me. It will give you sickness.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, no worries, no worries with the camera. Like, I'm still working with my shitty, like, 720p webcam, so ain't no thing.
Don't worry, I'm just barely better. I got 1080p. Nice. Ooh, working with that early 2010s quality, dude. But anyway, welcome. Why don't you tell chat who you are, first off?
My name's Elias. I'm also known on TikTok as Bigfatsocialist, and I guess you could call me a content creator now, although really that's just a way of saying that I'm a guy who makes videos in his spare time while working a full-time job in a call center. So, you know, like, I'm just trying to, just trying to do the grind and make some fun content, but I primarily make, geek-themed, like, content, stuff relating to some of my favorite passions, which is TTRPGs, like just general nerd culture. I love Magic the Gathering, D&D, of course, even though I've got a lot of criticisms at 5e. But just like fantasy, science fiction in general, and I obviously, based on my name, I started off as a politics channel. I always kind of inject a bit of a left-wing slant into anything original that I do. At one point, I actually have got 10, I think, of 13 of 5e subclasses done. I've got a left-wing subclass for each of them. So, yeah, I've been having fun with that. Like, yeah, but that's pretty much me, just a big, fat, weird, Scottish, like, geek who relishes in doing, like, weird shit. That's my whole deal.
Sweet. So, let's start off this conversation, this interview, with how did you get into D&D, my friend? I'm very curious about that.
Now, this is a very weird one, because, despite the fact that I've loved fantasy and science fiction and, speculative fiction in general, like, my whole life, my mom was reading me The Hobbit ever since I was a kid. Like, but despite that, I didn't get into D&D until very late in my life, 2013, as a matter of fact. Like, I just got into, I just got into university. And I'll be honest, I was a bit reluctant to get involved in geek culture because even that, concept of sitting around the table with people seemed a little bit too sociable for me. So, but I was into Magic the Gathering at that point, so that was my gateway drug into, D&D. I sat down with a couple of people, played some Call of Cthulhu 5th edition, nearly gave up on TTRPGs entirely. That first session was absolutely terrible, and I won't even go into it right now. It was that bad. But like, I was about to give up on the hobby entirely, and then a lovely, lovely group of people sat me down and invited me to play a modified version of Warhammer Fantasy Second Edition. My pal Billy was an extensive history student. Loved studying the Holy Roman Empire, so naturally the old world of old style Warhammer Fantasy was his bag. Although he hated what he considered to be some of the weird tropey anachronisms of it, so he started injecting it with a lot of the real world history he was studying, eventually creating his own effectively version of the setting, which we end up nicknaming Billyhammer. And yeah, ever since then, I just fell in love with TTRPGs from that point. I was playing that shit 3 to 5 times a week for the entirety of my university, and then obviously all my masters as well. I just fell into it, and I tried 100 different kinds of games. Dread, 5e, of course. Fate Core Accelerated, just every single TTRPG I could get my hands on, because we had a small society that were just constantly rotating single one-shot games, and I just got stuck in the hobby. I even did TTRPGs as the primary topic of my master's dissertation. That's how much I love TTRPGs.
Holy shit!
Yeah. Yeah.
Mind my words, but you went balls deep.
Damn right I did. No, I just both feet just right in there. It was nuts. It was I don't know why. I think escapism was a really important thing to me. You growing up whether it was through video games or so, but having this giant ludicrously immersive experience with a bunch of people who purely want to try and add things to make the story better and help it flow was so refreshing, and I just got addicted. It was the beginning of a lifelong love affair.
I got into D&D and Pathfinder and all that because of my dad, actually, because every time my dad would go out and go do D&D and everything, and then he'd come home and tell me how he was playing his cleric or his paladin or his wizard, and he was just I served the Crow Queen and everything, and I'm just wow, that's so cool. And then I got into high school, and they're actually having at the Anime Gaming Club, they actually ran sessions, so I joined in a Pathfinder session, and from there it was just you have not lived until your DM looks you dead in the eye and says, you are going to go rescue William Shatner, Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh my god.
It's the greatest thing, and I wanted to play
No, please continue, please.
I wanted to play a paladin really badly, and they're like, okay, so as a paladin you need an oath. And I'm like, okay. And me being an atheist and being an edgelord at the time, I was like, can I not serve anything that's not a god? He's like, oh no, you just have to have an oath. And I'm like, oath of no retreat? And he's like, yeah, you can do that. And so my character would just basically be if I see you turn around, I get in your way, and I tell you to be more afraid of me than them. And it was really, really good. It was really, really fun. And they didn't they actually built into me that I need to be an actual player and not this dickhead who's trying to take over the whole thing. And it was really, really nice to learn that. But now I am curious. You said you had a few complaints about 5th edition, and now I am genuinely curious about what those problems are. As a DM myself, I have not noticed very many problems. I've noticed a few things that have been annoying to some of my players, when it came to Fairy Fire and what's the spell called? It's the one that creates a 15-foot aura of black.
Oh yes, I think it's just called Darkness.
Yeah, I think it's Darkness. And we're playing a campaign called Strixhaven, and in Strixhaven there is the.
Oh, I am more than familiar with Strixhaven.
All right.
So the only intellectual property about school for wizards that is important.
Yes. So I changed up the Wizard Towers game to make it an actual fucking game, not just roll 3 skill tests 3 times. Whoever has the most successes wins. No, it was an actual fucking game. And I had a vampire on the other team cast Darkness, and then my warlock casted Fairy Fire. and we were just like, how does that work? Like, and
Yeah,
I
Fairy
looked,
Fire versus Magical Darkness.
we looked it up, and God be willing, the man himself from, why am I forgetting his name? He's the guy that usually answers D&D questions.
Wait. It'll be Jeremy Crawford.
Jeremy Crawford. Yep. Jeremy said that in this term, darkness takes precedent, though if Fairy Fire is active inside of it, it is only active in that square. So you will still be able to get advantage if you are within 5 feet, but you cannot see them if you are outside of 5 feet, which was interesting. But I am curious about your problems with 5th edition.
Well, primarily it comes from my particular DMing and playing style. Like, don't get me wrong, I think the 5th edition is a fine game. I think that Dungeons & Dragons is a popular bit of TTRPG media for a reason, and it serves a very important part in the community. It obviously is the mainstay. It's the eternal game. It's the one that brings all of the big names and new players into the format. It's the one that gets readily published and everything. It lures people in.
It's
what brings you into the hobby.
It's the simplest one to learn.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know about simple though. That's one of my principal complaints about it actually.
Ooh.
Like my problem with D&D is that depending on what kind of player you really have, it tends to. I mean, such kind of the problem with most TTRPGs that it's my philosophy that TTRPG systems are primarily about regulating player choice. Like obviously, if you were to play a game like Fate, and you say, oh, you have absolutely no holds bar, you can do whatever you want. You could be, say, for example, the same to play in Middle Earth, and one character could be like, okay, I'm going to pull out a AK-47 and just destroy the Horde of Orcs. And they're like, okay, but you can't do that. And they're like, why can't I do that? Where in the rules does it say I can't do that? And that's why it's very useful to have a book that says here, here, and here. But my principal problem is that as a result of that trying to regulate player behavior, because we tend to focus on let's try and limit our destructive capability, which is especially important in 5e, there tends to be this attitude of where it's primarily focused on fucking combat. And don't get me wrong, I love a wargaming kind of thing as much as the next person. But what brought me into the hobby was a love of role playing and character acting, and trying to think of decisions that would really, really be in my character's mindset, rather than how do I make this 3-hour fight last less time. And there's lots of great tools and mechanisms that people have in place for obviously trying to streamline combat and make combat a little smoother. But my GMing style, and the one that my first ever GMs taught me was fuck combat. Smart players in most fantasy settings, if you're going to be thinking mercilessly in a really rough and tumble kind of world, they try and avoid fights, or if you're going to try and do fights, you try and fight really hard and really dirty. So this idea of structure turns and the action economy always didn't really gel with me. This is not to say that it's a bad system. I think that people who enjoy that absolutely should enjoy it, but I prefer other kinds of games. I prefer games where combat isn't something that's going to take me 3 hours of my life. I prefer games where I can really focus on trying to avoid combat or think of solutions around combat, or if perhaps if I'm in a bit of a more grimdark or cosmic horror kind of mood, things where taking damage basically means that I'm going to have to think of an entirely different way of a situation. Like in Cthulhu, for example, if you get injured, pretty much there's no way of immediately rectifying an injury. Even with first aid, you're going to be hobbling about for the remainder of the game until you can find immediate medical attention, and you have to heal real hours in game. So, that's the kind of attitude that we got taught playing on. It was this attitude of, yeah, you should think more strategically rather than think about what big spell can I cast once next turn.
Yeah. Now that I'm actually really thinking about it, is that when it comes to personally my DMing style, I don't like being bogged down in a combat scenario, because I played Pathfinder 1E. I understand what it's like sitting there. I played Gunslinger too. So, if you're playing Gunslinger, your entire modus operandi is you fire a shot, and you sit there and wait. You're not a wizard who does, I cast this and this in my turn, or some fighter who's like, okay, I do this, and I proc this into this, and you're just like, kill me. Fucking kill me, please. though, when it came to my DMing style, I guess I subconsciously just ignored combat kind of when it came to it because social interactions are more interesting. As an example, so like I played the 40k TTRPGs, Black Crusade, Death Watch, and
Yep. Oh,
in
right.
Death Watch, my squad, the players that were making up the squad, the Raven Guard of the squad basically said, "I'm just keeping a bag of grenades on me. You have enough rec for that? Yeah, I got a bag of grenades on me. Okay, use the rec, everything." And my total opinion is, if you do something that's smart and interesting, I will let you do it. And they were in the middle of they were in the middle of this massive war zone, and they encountered this entrenched heretic position where they were just like lobbing mortars at people, and they're like, the Raven Guard just says, "I'm going to stealth up there and throw the bag of nades at them." You're gonna do what? I'm gonna take my bag of nades and throw it at them. Are the grenades armed? Yes. I didn't even say don't roll for initiative. Just roll your stealth. Rolls a nat 1, which is in that game 100% crit success. For those that don't know, the 40k tabletop RPGs by Fantasy Flight use the percentile system, not the d20 system. So the lower your roll is, the better. So in this instance, a nat 1 is a crit success. And so Stealth's, he's a fucking ghost, tosses the bag of grenades. The 20-man and artillery unit was just like, what the fuck? I didn't even bother to roll damage. That was a smart play. That entire position was taken out. And that's my opinion, is that, like, if you do something smart, you should be rewarded for it, not bogged down with, like, okay, everyone roll initiative. Okay, since the Raven Guard apparently rolled last on initiative, he moves last. What is everyone else doing? You just got to go through each person individually saying, thing, Raven Guard. And
like one of my favorite alternatives in terms of like traditional initiative based systems. Well, not so much an alternative, but like a variant. You played Wrath and Glory yet?
I have the core rulebook. I just haven't had anyone to play with.
I've played a few sessions. I ran like I think 4 or 5 one shots with it. First of all, its initiative system is really, really good because instead of characters rolling off, how it works is players effectively make actions as a single group. They decide amongst themselves who's going first and in what order, and then based on a kind of points pool similar to that of like Fate, where the DM can spend a point to make something interesting happen. You can interrupt people when they're trying to make an action in order to try and get ahead of them, and it's interesting because it produces a very cinematic kind of combat experience. Best example of this is I was running a game where we had 2 Sisters of Battle, a tech priest, and a raptor space marine scout that were making their way through this. Yeah, don't even ask how that party got together. But they're making their way through this planet's under siege by traitor guard, and there's this big ass section of war zone shell to shit city between them and what they're here for, which is a completely unknown object in a box in some temple across the city that just happens to be in a kind of dugout that the Imperial Guard have managed to keep preserved. And you have a simple mission: get across the war zone, get the box, and get back. And basically, they've got the box, and they're you're trying to eventually get it back to this kind of safe area. And the Raptor Scout and one of the Sisters of Battle are kind of in a dugout area. They're in this shelled out to fuck building, this 3 to 4 story apartment building that is barely standing up. And it's at this point, basically, that they're on top of the roof. They're trying to there's some ordnance on top of the roof. The Raptor Space Marine Scout gets a pretty nasty complication and has a bit of a misfire, which hits what I had previously described was effectively a small depot of fuel.
Uh-oh.
So at this point, I'm thinking to myself, hold on a second here. Explosive shell. They're using mass reactive shells. That's a giant tanker full of fuel. There's explosives everywhere here, and that building is only standing up by the grace of God. So I basically describe as they try and do this amazing, I'm gonna have to say Marvel-esque cinematic leap from one building falling into another and then rapidly coming out as the dust settles.
Fucking
That's the kind of
Fucking
I
Kung
know.
Fu Panda 2's it.
Mwah, mwah. Oh, it was so much fun. But like, it's very interesting because I wouldn't have been able to come up with that if I'd just been doing a free flow kind of like combat session. Oh, like here's what's happening, or if I'd done a strictly 5e style thing with turn order and initiative, because then I'd be thinking about thinking of it in too much in terms of moving pieces on the board. When I DM, when I try and do like theater of the mind, I try and think of it from a cinematic perspective. What are you seeing? What are you smelling? What are you hearing? That kind of thing.
All right. Oh, just a quick thing. Chat, save your questions for when I do question time, please. I see your questions there. We will get to them when we get to them. I promise. Anyway, so, yeah, the cinematic experience, the rule of, like, that's the rule of cool. Always do the rule of cool. And for me personally, if something funny's gonna happen, please do the funny thing. So, like, same campaign where, like, the guys had the bag of nades, our Blood Angel was chasing a Alpha Legion operative through this Imperial fortress. And essentially, it's just that one scene from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs with the cop just like... And eventually, he turns around the hallway, and they lose sight of him for like 6 seconds, turns around the corner, and there's 2 doors on either side, and he doesn't see which one's closed. So the Blood Angel is just like, I'm not going to use my senses, I'm flipping a coin. And I'm like, why? And my brother, who was playing the Blood Angel, just says, because Angie. And he just goes up to the door, crashes it open. Some poor fucking scribe who's just like having a day just sees their door get busted down, and this hulking Death Watch Blood Angel with a chainsword active steps into the room and screams, "Where are you?" and realizes his mistake as there's this poor scribe who's like, I don't know what I did, but by the Emperor, I'm sorry. And he's just like, oh no, I apologize for intruding. Grabs the door, puts it back in place, and then goes around and kicks the other door. And I describe as like the door that he kicked in previously just falls back in, and the scribe's just looking as he sees the Ultramarine medic like chasing after the Blood Angel.
This is the same vibe of the Kool-Aid man politely walking backwards out of a wall. He's just
That's the exact wording that we used. It was hilarious. And I'm glad that you and I share the same perspective on this, is that combat is fun, but to a certain extent it can get annoying. It's more fun when the party is interacting and talking with each other and actively working together. And
yeah,
I want to ask you something. So the Matt Mercer effect.
Yeah, the celebrity GM. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have this thing that I say is that to any GM or any anyone that wants to become a GM, do not be Matt Mercer. You cannot be Matt Mercer. And it's not out of a place of malice or like, oh, you'll never be Matt Mercer. Matt Mercer himself has stated that he worries that he did a lot to damage D&D because Matt Mercer's been in this apparently since first edition, I want to say.
Yeah, he has been.
And
it's wild.
He is so enthralled with the mechanics and everything that he can create epic things like this, and plus he has money. He's got the money to back it up. And a lot of people that got into D&D were disappointed that, like, why don't we have these things that, like, Critical Role has? And my thing is to both DMs and players, Shadow, I see you, do not come to D&D with the expectation that it's going to be like this grand, marvelous thing. A lot of DMs use pre-built campaigns from Wizards of the Coast, and it's a very, very hard thing to build a campaign to 100%. And I want to know what you think of like what Matt Mercer said about like, please do not be me.
Well, this is the thing. I think that Critical Role was a bit of a double-edged sword for people getting into the hobby in general. Because on the one hand, I mean, if you told me, like, without any context of Critical Role, hey, there's a live play D&D game where 6 of the greatest voice actors in Hollywood sit down to do improv character acting as part of a D&D session, I'd be like, yes, I want to watch that. And that's what got me into like Critical Role when I watched I think like I'm a good 60% through campaign 1. I eventually quit. I eventually like I'm quit because one thing that's important to learn is that watching live play D&D, especially if you're using rules as written combat, is boring as sin.
Oh
It's like
my
watching
God.
people. It's like watching people play poker. Why do you do it? You know, like it's no, it's weird. Anyway, like if I'm not even poker, because at least in poker there's a bit of suspense because you can potentially see what people's hands are. But instead, like this is like waiting on people counting up the results for dice. It's just not fun to watch. Anyway,
Yeah.
well, okay, like but the thing is with that celebrity state is they were able to introduce so many people to the hobby. The level of exposure to Dungeons Dragons that came as a result of Critical Role was just unfathomable, and as a result, TTRPGs in general start to pick up a lot of traction. So I can't say that it's been a bad Matt Mercer's with a bad bit in the hobby, but yeah, the celebritization effect, the expectation, the ridiculous minis, the ludicrous amount of playtime. I mean, if anything else, Critical Role is a myth because it's a myth that all of those people can consistently get together every few weeks in order to play that game. The one thing that we always struggled with was we actually had a rule in our D&D society when I was in uni. We don't do campaigns. We do not. The way it worked basically was that we had a common setting that we all agreed that we enjoyed playing. In this case, it was the Empire, or rather our version of it. Every week or every time we went to the meet up and do games, one person would be like, hey, I had this idea for a game. It would be like this kind of area of the world. Does anybody have any players they think would be interested in X premise? And they'd be like, oh, yeah, I've got this guy. He was in here last week. And they're like, oh, yeah, that'll be good. Yeah. So that's how we operated. And it was hit and miss because obviously there's going to be days where you're burnt out. You can't really come up with a great idea. Sessions occasionally peter out. But the interesting thing was it also forced us to flex our creative muscles and really focus on creating interesting hooks and stories, creating interesting little red herrings and subdivisions, distracting characters, luring them in, making an enticing plotline. And I think that the problem with Critical Role was that it created this idea of D&D is this it's nostalgia about the wargaming element. I mean that's how first edit actually came about. It was a variation from Chainmail that Gygax loved, the war game.
Yep.
Yeah, and then it was focused primarily on this whole combat mechanic, and that's primarily one of my beasts with it, is because regardless of how much role playing element, how much they talk about how great TTRPG D&D is, it's essentially a war game with a TTRPG skin. That's not necessarily an opinion that a lot of people are going to agree with, but it's what I genuinely feel when I play the game. You know?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I'm still not going to diss Matt Mercer. I think he's done fantastic things for the hobby.
Oh no, Matt.
Him as well as, yeah.
I mean no offense to Matt Mercer, and I agree with Matt Mercer when he said, "Please do not be me." And Matt Mercer, oh my God, that man can tell a story. That man is.
Oh yeah, he can. He can.
Please, God. And it doesn't help that when I played Overwatch, when that wasn't a fucking chaotic mess, I mained McCree, who Matt Mercer plays, and there was already that love for him. But
sorry, I dropped my mic.
You're fine. So I want to ask this because I am a weak man. I am a very weak man when it comes to plastic and cardboard, and I have the selection of Yu-Gi-Oh cards behind me that I do not play anymore. But Magic?
It's actually one thing quickly. It's really interesting you mentioned that. My mic is currently being propped up on my old Yu-Gi-Oh card collection.
Everyone just has a Yu-Gi-Oh card collection. There is no nerd in this world that you cannot tell me they don't have at least one.
It was part of the pipeline, they did this great anime with a semi-decent plot at the time, I guess you could have argued. But yeah, I abandoned it. I spending hundreds of the equivalent of US dollars spending on it, and I just realized, wait, this game sucks and I barely understand how it works. So I stepped back from it, and I swore I would never touch a TTRPG again in my life. And then that fateful episode of Adventure Time Card Wars, ripping the piss out of Magic the Gathering. I know, I was just like, that's funny. That looks like that Magic game that my friends were playing in like in high school. Just like, isn't that Jules the Planeswalker on the Xbox? Let me give that a try. And then now I have like 7 boxes of cards and like 12 commander decks.
I have had to physically restrain myself at some points to not buy Magic because I used to be in Yu-Gi-Oh! I used to play it competitively, and then I fell out of it because it was either you choose plastic crack or you choose cardboard crack. You don't get one or both. It's one or the other.
I specifically told my sister if I ever get into mini painting, that she needs to shoot me because I will be destitute within 3 weeks.
Oh, trust me, I dropped $400 on a fucking starter box for the Horus Heresy because
oh god,
I am a fucking goblin. I have no self-control, and that's why I have a wonderful fiance in the other room that makes sure that I don't do something stupid. And then here I go.
Game of Fiance. Good job. Keep him right. Come on.
Now, luckily for me, I have safeties in place and everything, and I just got after waiting 2 weeks for my pre-order details, finally got it today, and it's shipping today, and I'm going to be doing a box opening on that one. But yeah,
Ooh.
So I wanted to ask because you are more in the Magic Gathering community than I am. I am as the farthest I know about the Magic the Gathering community is the one guy who does the scandals in said community, like he did the scandals in Magic the Gathering and such. What was his? And I really liked him. And then there was my friend Aether Toast, who is, oh my god. But I wanted to ask you, how is the Magic the Gathering community?
Oh, in what sense? Like when you say how is?
So we have a community here where I live, and they are extremely nice people. They are wonderful. Mm-hmm. The leader of that community, though, is going to a different store. The community store we have here has opened up a franchise, which is amazing. I'm very happy for them. Wonderland Games, if you ever pop into Alberta, please check them out. They are in Edmonton. They are in Prince George. They are in Grand Prairie. Wonderful people. And I know that it's not that the group here, because I've heard horror stories about other places, and I want to know your consensus on the Magic the Gathering community. And I know like every community has its problems. Every community has its outliers. Warhammer is no exception to that, and I will not defend that part of Warhammer. But I want to know about your take on the Magic the Gathering community. Like, what do you think of it? How do you feel about being in it? What is the good, the bad, the ugly, that kind of thing?
Well, in terms of my presence in the community, like I've made a couple of videos here and there regarding MTG, but I'm not really like a prominent MTG TikToker. I'd love to be, and I hope to be able to play more Arena in future. Just life is going to get in the way just now, like but basically in terms of my experiences, my LGS was a beautiful little record shop in Stirling in Scotland. Like it's called Europa Music. It's actually the largest. Well, it's actually got the largest collection of vinyl of any independent record shop in the entirety of the country. It's amazing. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot. They unfortunately had to stop running events because for disability access reasons, because the main playing area was in their effectively attic. You would take a small set of stairs, you would lead up, and there'd be boxes, of old vinyl that had, bits of cardboard and, plaha and, plywood put on top of them to do tables and little, deck chairs here and there. You could barely get 18 people in there. It was a very, very, very small community. And we did have a second LGS called Common Ground Games, we'll get into in a second, but they were incredibly welcoming and very friendly, and they were a space for, kids, because that was the main street in that particular area, and a lot of people were coming in. And they were very inviting to me, and they helped me get into Magic, and they helped me maintain that. In terms of the wider community though, my issue was that there were the toxic players in Magic the Gathering. Well, one a very interesting hallmark for this other place that I'm not going to diss because I'm recognizing now that I have power, like with my current following count.
Yeah,
But there
yeah.
was a secondary, yeah, but there was a secondary like LGS in that area that I was living in. Who when you walked into the bathroom, there was a complimentary can of deodorant with a small label that said "player freshener." Yeah, yeah. So that's the kind of environment we were talking about there.
Oof.
Like, yeah, it's like so, and admittedly, that was a multi-purpose game space as well. Like, there were folk that were doing full-out wargaming, giant like sections of terrain for doing 40K and stuff like that. Like, but like the community there usually very positive. My problem was like players that were hyper competitive and constantly running like meta decks that were
Oh my
being used
god.
to yeah plow through these 12 and 13-year-old kids that were coming there with hobbled together precons with maybe a couple of boosters for supplements. That they're their parents or their brothers had helped or their sisters had helped kind of hobble together, and they were getting wrecked. Like, I remember going into this one spot with this ridiculous little deck that I'd built, tricolor, and not using basically any cards in the meta, and was ludicrously silly. And I was sitting down and just like, oh man, sorry, I forgot. Like, can I put and the first thing he says to me is, no, state-based action, turn by order. And he's saying it as though he's a bloody, a pro tour, a qualifier. And I'm like, mate, you are in the top of a record shot, you know? Like, you're not you're not asking, there's not hundreds of pounds in the line here. Just like, I understand, okay, like, you don't want to do it, but let me walk back one bad move. Yeah, bad thing. Like, it was crazy. Like, it was almost predatory was my your word for it, because they were going in there clearly trying to rack up wins so they could then go to a Grand Prix or something similar to that. Qualify for major events.
Yeah.
This was just fodder.
Oh
You
my
know.
god. So yeah, 40K has that problem too, where it's these people we kind of have a personal name for them, and they're pump and dumpers. So basically, 40K right now, ninth edition, has a really bad fucking habit of power creep. Like, for example, when Space Marines came out, they were just disgustingly powerful. There was just nothing that could top them. The Necron army was heavily underpowered, and every other army that was stuck with the 8th edition codexes were just not keeping up. And then Mechanicus came out, and guess what the top 10 was? Nothing but Mechanicus. And it's and then you see all these armies and such, and to discourage that, GW put in the clause of your army has to have at least one layer of paint, has to be based, and has to have detailing. I.e.,
so you're not walking in with a bunch of unpainted models and then beating everybody.
Yeah, but then again, that also punishes players that don't have the time to paint. I know a few people, including myself. I am very stringent on my time, and I can barely get models done nowadays. And I got a few thousand suns here that they're begging, they're pleading, paint me, father, and I can't paint them because I'm busy. And as well as that, there are the people that just want to rack up wins. They're there to win. They don't care. They get the hype from the win. And I guess it's more of a problem in Magic because Magic is a cheaper game to get into.
Yeah, although it's a slippery slope if you're not careful.
In my opinion here, but I say that 40K, when people are like, should I get into Magic? Should I get into 40K? And I'm like, okay, how's your wallet? And they're like, I can afford stuff. And I'm like, okay, Magic, you're going to have to constantly buy new cards if you want to keep up with the meta. You got to keep updating your decks, everything. Watch out for the ban lists. 40K is an investment, but once you drop about $300 to $400 into Warhammer 40K, you're pretty much
you can more
set.
or less just use that army.
Yeah, you're set. And then you don't have to upgrade until the new edition, which usually comes about 3 to 4 years later. And a lot of people who have money to burn are just going to be like, nope, I want to win. Blue. And
it's
for people you first.
Oh no, please, you continue. Please.
And for people like you and me, we're just like, play whatever the fuck you want. Rule of cool. If you want to play white-red for God knows what reason, play red-white. Personally, by the
To
way,
be fair, like with Strixhaven, like White Red got pretty good. Like Boros got pretty fun.
and personally for me, by the way, green-black representative all the way.
Oh, Golgari, yeah. Like I actually got one of my. It's interesting. Talking about like swapping drug habits. Like my pal, a lovely fellow by the name of Sean Maloney, actually got me into the Warhammer 40k lore by telling me about like he was obsessed with Nurgle. And like you basically just gave me all the rundown that told me was spamming me all sorts about the Grey Knights and just like, hey, you ever heard of the Magic Gathering? You ever heard of the Golgari? And I'm like, who are the Golgari? And I started telling Ravik, he's just like, I will play this game forever. Just oh my god, it was crazy. I just a small bit of lore, and he just like dove right in. But like yeah, but he was it's really weird because he was like the nicest human being alive. You would never meet a more polite, relaxed, chill human being ever. But like he's into the most horrific kinds of media, you know? Like he loves Nurgle and 40k, Phyrexia and MTG, the Golgari, like I'm just like all kinds of Geiger-esque stuff. Just all the most horrific body horror you can imagine. Like, how are you the same person I was having tea with a moment ago?
I'm the same way. Fun fact about me: Dead Space is one of my favorite games of all time, and that game. Listen, it's this one guy's effect. I don't remember his name, but he's an he's a Japanese manga author, and he
Junji Ito.
Yes, the Junji Ito effect. You read Junji Ito manga? Holy shit, most fucked up garbage you'll ever see in your life. Like people jumping into holes.
Never again.
Never again. Never again. Jumping into holes, mangled corpses. You meet Junji Ito in real life, he's the most pleasant motherfucker you'll ever meet. He is so goddamn nice and so goddamn calm. It's like you put the man beside the work and you're like, how? What is going on? What is in that fucked up head of yours? And he's just like, I just draw it.
It's weird though. It's weird. It's weird that's often the case. Like I remember watching like an Anthony Bourdain interview where he was sitting down and like I'm reviewing a manga artist, and like it's just like oh yeah, this is a manga. Just like oh wow, who's he interviewing? I wonder because I don't know that much about manga, but I know a few names. Just like this guy made Legend of the Overfiend. And I'm like what? What?
Yeah. So like a lot of people weren't expecting that, even from me. Is that like when you meet me, is that I have been described as the cuddly teddy bear of people. And it's very hard to set me off and like just a very nice person. And then they see what I like and they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And my response is, come on! Ever-changing and shifting demons? That's cool as shit! Or like, what? You two do not like to dismember undead corpses that want to tear your goddamn face off? Fucking weak.
It's a weird thing, like I mean, where like really chill people that tend to be attracted to these very bizarrely, like over the top, like stuff. So many lovely people I know that are just like, yeah, do you want to sit there with me? We'll watch like 5 slasher movies, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, and it's so weird that like, I don't know why I like these things. I just do, and
yeah.
It's so weird. Like to me, it's so jarring to have people go like, "I never expected this from you," and I just go like, "Did I come off like wrong or something? What the fuck?"
I mean, like sometimes it's nice to have that though because it can be a benefit. For example, if depending on what kind of games you like to run. Like for me, one thing that I love to do, despite the fact that I'm a bit of a funny guy and I like to be that kind of haha comedian type, is I love running horror. I love running horror so much. It's so fun to it's so fun to put people on their toes. Like yeah, I had a lot of fun. Like I'm running a Call of Cthulhu one shot that took place in 1910s Glasgow. Like where we were hunting. I don't know if in Canada you know a lot about like contemporary Scots history.
Like, so actually, funny thing is, I am half French, half Scottish. My grandma is first generation immigrant over here to Canada.
Ah, cool. Well,
And
Brian, is there any...
and an interesting thing about me, and I actually have my family tree. I can actually trace this all the way back. I am related to Robert the Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, so many people.
Oh yeah,
That man got around.
it,
Uh,
I and personally, I really do want to visit Scotland personally because it's.
you got it.
I got
I can't hype up enough.
I got family over there. I want to visit. I want to see my mom's side of the family stomping ground, and I am in love with Scottish culture. I'm in love with Scottish architecture and design. I am in love with.
Oh yeah.
I'm I'm in love with that part of my family, and I keep making the joke as well is that like both the French and Scottish part of me just looks at the British and goes, "One day, you fucking bastards."
Oh God. Oh, like I mean, please continue. Sorry.
And yeah, so like it is a part of me that I really want to find out more about and visit. But yeah, continue on with what you were saying about.
Well, essentially, this Call of Cthulhu game I ran took place in like 1920s Glasgow, and it focused on a rather prolific serial killer that existed here, who was famously known as the Gorbals vampire. He hung about a particularly like run down area of like say the Gorbals in Glasgow, like very like impoverished area like Glasgow historically. Starting to come on the up and up now actually, like but yeah, there was a pretty like scary period of time, and I thought, well, you know what, Cthulhu almost exclusively like done in the 20s for like reasons of being its contemporary to Lovecraft, like, and we might as well like try something a little more down home. And I had a lot of fun doing it, but I decided I was going to incorporate a bunch of like body horror elements into this one, and people were just like, "Whoa, where did you come up with these ideas?" Just like, yeah, I'm watching a lot of like Scorn playthroughs. I was watching a lot of like H.R. Geiger interviews, just
Ooh.
anything weird and gross I could come up with. I mean, like I must have read like Geiger talking about like designing the egg and the alien like 500 times. There's this amazing anecdote. Uh, yeah, there's this amazing anecdote where it was just like, yeah, they rejected the first two designs for the egg because they thought that the opening was far too orifice-like, and I was so
Ah,
offended. Yeah, like because apparently he just wanted it to originally be like a single slit or like an expanding like versus like that. But like they were like that's too graphic. You cannot have that even in this movie. And he's
bunch
like,
of
we're gonna have
wussies.
it's like we're gonna have something bursting out of a human's chest, but you think that's too much? And they're like, yeah, okay, I'll put a cross on the top, and then the Catholics can get what they're looking for. So, H.R. Geiger, absolute madman.
Oh my god, malicious compliance is the greatest thing ever.
Mwah, mwah.
Oh my god. But yeah, so I played in a Pathfinder campaign where it was Cthulhu, like Cthulhu-esque and everything, and there was like this really funny moment in the campaign where I'm playing an investigator and we're inside this asylum. And I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna go to the courtyard by myself and figure out what the fuck is in the storage shed. And I go over there. Nothing's a problem. Open the door. It's a set of stairs. And I'm like, how bad is this? Can I gauge that I can go this alone? And I decide, fuck it, I'll go alone. And I just grab a torch, go down, and the stairs are cut off.
Oh
It's
dear.
just a big flat pit. And I just go, okay. I throw the torch down to see how far it goes, because I still have the light behind me. 50 feet down. Hmm.
It's a good pit. That's a good pit.
That's a good pit. Flesh.
Nice. Just everywhere.
just a writhing pit of flesh, and I'm like, okay. And I just turn around, I walk back up the stairs, I close the door behind me, and I just grab a piece of wood, and I just nail the door shut, and I just walk back to my party, and they're like, so where'd you go? Oh, there's a flesh pit over there. There's a what? There's a flesh pit over there.
But just there. Flesh. Flesh.
Listen, I played Dead Space. Listen, I played Dead Space. I've seen the corruption. My brain just immediately goes, if I touch that, bad things happen. Let's go the other way. But yeah,
it's so fun watching people like stumble into all of the classic "why would you do this" moments in like a horror movie. You
yeah,
know, like it's like, you hear something moaning by the door. I'm gonna back away from the door.
yeah. So that's something else is that I hate horror movies. I fucking hate them. And it's not because of like the reason of they're all trashy, they're all boring. No, I can't have control of the situation, so I fucking hate it.
Ah, I see. See, horror's a weird one for me because don't get me wrong, I think that I love horror, but what I mean is I like a good horror movie. If a movie can actually scare me, I'm happy with it. And it's very seldom that a horror movie scares me, indeed, because unfortunately, like all y'all in the North American content are going to hate me for this. You've infected horror films with hope, you know? Like, this weird idea that, like, at the end, your characters get to walk away and completely fine. This idea that, like, you're the main, like, a mattress that survived the serial killer just gets to walk off into the sunset with, like, a vacant stare and a slightly bloody top. It's just boring. I've seen it so many times.
No, I agree. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, but like, for me, a horror film needs to make me feel very, very, very uncomfortable. And there's a very small number that are capable of doing that. Recently, there's only been 3 movies that have been able to do that for me. The Witch, A24, not sure if you've seen it yet. Fantastic, if you haven't. Yeah, the double V, bitch, yes. Midsommar, which was also really, really cool. Like, and I rightly do see people making a comparison. It's the spiritual successor to The Wicker Man. It's creepy as hell.
Oh yeah, I've seen a breakdown. It's ooh shit.
Yeah. The one that got me recently, Edgar Wright's new one, Last Night in Soho. It was terrifying. Like really, really freaky. Like legitimately disturbing because it kind of worked on these whole ideas of like dissociation rather than just being like oh, there's something actually scary right here. You're like, oh, how much of this is really happening? It's really disturbing. Like if you're gonna watch something like it's also the closest I've gotten to seeing a proper feminist horror film, in that like it's primarily a love letter to female agency. It's amazing.
Hell
like
yeah.
you gotta check it out.
All right. Yeah. So when it comes to horror, whether it be tabletop, video game, whatever, for me, it's a sense of dread that if there is nothing to build up to the scares or something that's worse down the line, I get bored real fucking quick.
You need the suspense. You need the weight. You need the sense that something is coming without it feeling like, oh, it's in the corner.
Yeah. So Dead Space. The reason why I like Dead Space so much. I'm sorry, I keep going back to Dead Space.
No.
Dead Space always built up the question of what the fuck is going on? Why the fuck is this happening? Because how Dead Space works is that there's this thing called a marker. And this marker emits a signal. And the signal affects people's brains. And to some people, it's just noise that drives them fucking nuts. And gives them, like, visions of, like, their dead loved ones and everything. But for other people, it's a blueprint. And it helps them build more markers. But these markers also manipulate necrotic tissue. So that way they turn into the monsters.
Yeah, yes.
And then you're wondering, why does it do this? And the first game it says, oh no, this is a man-made marker. This is not an original marker. And you're like, okay, so it's probably like a blowback or something like that, right? No. Dead Space 2 then reveals, no, this is the purpose of the markers. They make this. The red one just contained it. So what do these black ones do? Oh, they're the conduit for convergence. What the fuck does that mean? And then we finally get the answer in Dead Space 3, which, good game, decent game. Holy fuck does it drive me crazy with the plot, because it's just...
I know.
Dead Space 3. Oh, it makes a moon. That's it? Oh, it's a moon that eats people. Oh, it's Cthulhu-esque horror. Oh, fuck! When you actually realize the implications of it.
Yep, an enormous planet-sized monstrosity.
And, oh my god, the Awakening DLC, that was perfect for me. Like, that fixed Dead Space 3 for me, is that just, like, You think everything's fine, the moon is dead, you're great, you're wonderful, let's get off this planet, Carver. And all of a sudden, why is Earth standing in front of me? Why is there marker symbols all over the place? Why is there 9 moons behind me? And all they say is, we are coming. We are hungry. Take us home, Isaac. And that right there was like, oh no. And Dead Space...
It's a very great...
Dead Space ends with you losing. There was no stopping this. And I love that. Is that this was planned, and there was no way for you to stop it. And
yeah. I mean, it's an interesting masterclass in cosmic horror because it's a rare thing because it's rather than being about, oh, you've won, just like, no, you need to make peace with the inevitable. That's what you need to do.
Yeah. And I really like it when stories, especially horror stories, go with the theories of, so like Dead Space, it goes with the theory of the apex predator. Why is space empty? Why have we not encountered any other forms of life? One of the theories...
you mean like the Fermi paradox, like the idea of the Great Barrier? Yeah,
exactly. And that's what Dead Space does. It says, oh, the reason why we haven't encountered any other life is because it's been eaten. Because in Dead Space 3, we do encounter an alien life form. We do encounter the aliens of Tau Volantis. And we discover, oh no, their situation was just as bad, if not worse than ours, because they didn't create the markers. They just did what we did. And they didn't stop convergence. They only delayed it. And that is so much more fascinating to me. And that, like, it builds up more of that dread. Because these aliens were far more advanced than we were, and they couldn't stop it. So what the fuck chance do we have?
I mean, I love the first Dead Space because it's, in my opinion, a masterclass in environmental storytelling.
Oh my God, I love
yeah, it's so good. Like, I mean, you're walking into the ship, you're immediately saying something is going down, and the further you get in, the more is revealed, even without the need for actual dialogue explaining what's happening. You can tell based on scrolls on the wall, based on the position of bodies, based on like the location of weapons, what had happened. It's just terrifyingly cool. And it's a very rare thing that you see in like other games. I think the only exception I can think of is like some of the jokier parts of like Skyrim and Fallout, like where you're maybe labeling like weird wasteland and you're seeing an odd like set of bodies arranged playing cards or something like that, and you're wondering what happened here. But like in Dead Space, it's like no, we're going to use this as the main way of luring you into the ship and showing you something weird's happening. You know, when I managed to get as far as the first section where you're first introduced to the weird babies with the tentacles in their backs.
Oh my God, yeah, the lurkers.
Yeah. At that point I was like, I'm done.
The best thing about Dead Space 2, especially Dead Space 1, is that when you look at Dead Space 1, you can see how utilitarian it is in how... Because when you start Dead Space 1, you start off with the most basic set of clothes. I'm not saying armor. It's clothes. You got a helmet and maybe a slap of iron on your left shoulder, and that's it. And when you play Dead Space, they clearly say, no, this is a mining tool for like cutting wires. This is a mining tool for like breaking up rocks. This is a mining tool to basically mark your location. And you have to use these weapons to kill. The only military weapon is the pulse rifle. And guess what? That weapon's not good for dismemberment. It is meant for human-on-human warfare, not the things trying to kill you. Even though it is my favorite gun.
It's part of the reason I really want to try and play, I don't know if you've read, like, the Alien RPG yet.
I have not. I didn't even know Alien got an RPG.
Oh, it's a really good one too. It's a dice pool based system like where similar to like Vampire the Masquerade, where you're replacing X number of dice with like blood die as you're like constantly using your abilities. The way it works in this one is that you have your characters face what's called stress. So, for example, you run across a jump scare, or you happen to like you'll hear like something crawling through the vents. You do a stress test. and depending on whether or not like if you succeed, you replace a certain number of like your dice in your pool with a stress die. You get to it effectively makes it easier for you to actually pass checks, but there's consequences if you fail at that point. Like you could move on to the point where you have a full blown panic attack, for example. It's because it's entirely based on the idea of how do your characters function in an actual horror scenario. And the interesting thing you mentioned in terms of the mining tool elements in Dead Space is that they have two primary modes of playing the game. Because obviously, if you ask people who love the Alien franchise, there's usually the big question of, well, which do you prefer, Alien or Aliens? So they have two modes of playing the game. One is Space Truckers, where you are effectively normal, bog standard engineers, pilots, ship captains, core members, commercial like people who are just trying to get haulage from one space station to another. And you are working with whatever tools you have at your disposal. If you're lucky, maybe there's a pistol somewhere, like I'm in this colony or ship or wherever the hell you are. But typically, you won't be because it's not a smart idea to place firearms in the vicinity of people who are in a contained vessel going through space for prolonged periods of time. It's just not a clever idea. So that's one point. But alternatively, if you prefer like Aliens, there is the Space Marines game where no, you're a squad of colonial Marines. You know each other. Like you have actual military grade weapons technology. Be prepared to face 100 xenomorphs, and you can be barely hopeful that you'll survive. Yeah.
Yeah. So something interesting that I've been doing actually is that I've been trying to figure out how to make a Dead Space RPG. Because the tools are there, and the problem with coming up with Dead Space, I already know which system to go with. It's the percentile system, because in using the Fantasy Flight system, they actually have a limb generator, and the idea of Dead Space is body shots don't work, go for the limbs. And
go for the limbs.
That's perfect for that system, but then it's coming up with what are the classes, what do they do, how do you make the character sheets for that? And then what do you do for armor? Because not everyone is going to be able to get armor. Because, like, in Isaac's case in Dead Space 1, he basically just got better at, like, higher level engineering gear. And level 6 is, like, the most fully plated. But you could still see that, like, yeah, this is not meant for combat. This is, like, heavy grade. I'm going into the engine.
It's a nylon bag coated in bits of metal plate. You'll be lucky if this can stop like a Claw strike.
Man, Frank's very quiet. I hope a piece of stray space debris didn't get him. And I'm fascinated with like a lot of these RPGs that are coming out because a lot of people have different ways of interacting with that world. Because like you and me, if we were just slap dab in the middle of, like, say we were in the Aliens game, where it's like, we're on that station and shit, you and I would not do the same thing. You would probably be like, okay, first, let's gather as many people as we can to, like, have a group to survive, and my response would be, where is the nearest fucking escape pod? It's fascinating to see these things, and I have ran a survival-based game before, and just seeing how my party reacted to what was going on around them was like, holy shit, dude, you guys cannot communicate. Because, like, 3 of them wanted to go off and, like, go find out what the fuck was going on, while the other 3 were like, yeah, no, let's not do that. And it's just like, ooh, I'm kind of scared to see how you fuckers would survive in real life.
It's what's actually like when the lack of coordination sometimes always vexes me. I think personally, like, if your players want to be able to go off and do their own thing and have inter-party conflict, that's perfectly fine. That's fine. It feels real. It feels realistic and interesting. But in terms of like certain games, just like okay, but like the tone of the game, if it's meant to be cooperative, it's meant to be about your collective survival, and you're just all immediately trying to fuck each other up, it's a bit weird.
Yeah. You know? I wasn't in this campaign myself, but an example of poor partnership was my friend Aethertos told me that when he was playing with the anime gaming club teacher who ran the anime gaming club, one of the party members, this was a party of like 5, and one of them was a dickhead. He would just constantly do whatever he wanted. He constantly didn't listen. At one point, they got to this village of elves, and the elves were like, "Oh no, you can do whatever you want here. Just don't touch the fucking tree." That player said, "I'm immediately gonna go touch the fucking tree." The rest of the party, who had dealt with him for 2 fucking days, they're like, "Nope." Beat the shit out of him, knocked him out, and my friend at the time basically said, our alchemist of our party just walked up to his like knocked out body, grabbed his head, opened his mouth, and left a bomb in there and walked away.
Happened to my character once. Weirdly, it was odd. Like my character was in Fae at the time. I weirdly did a favor for the Cheshire Cat, I believe.
Oh god.
He taught me the secret of surviving, like him getting my head blown off. One of the other characters happened to be a Fleshcrafter, who decided that because I was his male enemy, he'd have a contingency plan against me. So he sewed my neck back onto my head and planted a bomb underneath my skull.
God damn it.
Yep. Yeah. Not even the weirdest like situation. It's interesting you talk about like characters not necessarily like, getting along. Oh, this is a legitimate game I had to deal with once. So this person I don't speak to anymore, unfortunately, for reasons I'm not going to get into in the stream. But they invited myself, another friend, and their then partner at the time to put in a session of Call of Cthulhu. And they were studying politics along with me at the time, and they were. Well, there's the thing that's not necessarily a bad thing. The problem was the kind of politics that they subscribed to were very, very, very liberal in the sense of like being pro like free market and pro capitalist.
Ah, yes, the system that doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even talk about that, but like, it's weird though that they wanted to inject this philosophy into the game. So what they basically told us was, "I'll tell you from the get-go that you can absolutely cooperate, but there's an incentive if you decide to fuck each other over." And I'm like, okay, weird, but fine. So me and my friend who are at the table are deciding, okay, we're just going to try and play together, and we'll see how this pans out. If there's an opportunity to fuck each other over, we'll consider it. Now, there was all kinds of problems with this, but the primary one was that they brought their then partner into the game. Their then partner was jumping into Call of Cthulhu, having only had experience with 5e their entire like gaming life.
Oh no.
So I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. But this is where the problem started. So essentially, like their partner says, so we're picking our character concepts. I'd say to go for an antiquarian, classic one in Cthulhu. My friend says to go for a PI, another classic. And this, their partner decides, I want to be a ninja. And I'm like, a ninja, okay. We'll give them some like leeway because this is their first time playing a kind of like real world inspired game for a TTRPG. Now, while we're off doing the main plot, they decided they're gonna do a little bit of a B plot. The ninja in this little sleepy town somewhere in I think like Connecticut decides, oh, I'm going to go and murder the chief of police. And I'm like, sorry? Yeah. So they were, and they did so. They successfully did so. But at this point in the turnaround stages, they come, okay, I'm going to apply for the position of chief of police. And at this point, I'm going to turn around. I'm turning to my friend thinking, okay, there's going to be an uncomfortable conversation where like our game master, our keeper tells them that that's not going to be possible because, they're a local police force. Why would they allow some random stranger to come in and assume a position of, like, administrating the local police when they're A, not a police officer, and B, had literally came in here 3 days ago. But they got it. They gave that position to them. So what do they then do with this power? They arrest the pair of us, and we have to sit and watch them play Call of Cthulhu for an hour and a half. Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm just sometimes okay. Like when I think setting tone is a really important thing. You can't bring people to a table and then do stuff like that. So if I know. Like honestly, all the horror stories I have are basically about Call of Cthulhu. That same keeper actually, I was playing an occultist / antiquarian in another game, and basically at one point, like we are in this weird position where there's a dimensional shambler moving towards us. Lights are going off in a room, and it's just us backed against a wall. There's a beautiful arcane-looking grimoire there. My character's just like, okay, if anything's gonna have a solution to this, I'm gonna have to grab it. In hindsight, having played more Call of Cthulhu, probably should have thought maybe don't read the ridiculously ancient grimoire right there and then because I immediately went crazy. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that after we get out of there, by the skin of our teeth, I may add. Our keeper then turns and tells us, "Oh yeah, your character immediately starts foaming at the mouth and needs to be brought to hospital because it turns out that this book was decided, like they decided, was going to be coated in a thin film of neurotoxin." And I'm like, "Why would that be a thing? Who's reading this book?" It's weird.
What? Oh my god. Oh.
I know.
So I have never had those kinds of problems before. My experience with tabletop RPGs, I have always had a very good DM. My friend Aether Toast has always been my DM, and then I became a DM. And then I had my friend Leonidas be a DM once, and that kind of just fell through. I never had these negative experiences before. I have had like instances where players were kind of being like, "Oh Jesus Christ, please stop," but nothing to like the extent of that. The worst that I could say was just during like a role playing moment where we were playing Skull and Shackles for Pathfinder, and me, me and my two friends, we were the leaders of our crew, essentially leaders of our party. We were chosen because my character had veterancy, my other friend was our medic, and my other friend was the captain. And so we sat in on this meeting and we were going through it all, and we're just like, okay, fuck. We realized that like this council is just sucking the Storm King's dick. And then out of fucking nowhere, our medic's like, we should build statues in our honor and build a wall that keeps all of these people out. And we're just like, it fucking excuse us? Like, where did this come from? And she realized that moment, like, oh, did I go too far? Did I like misread this situation entirely? And we're like, yeah, little fucking bit. And usually we were pretty healthy and like communicating like, what? to each other. And we told them like, hey, yeah, you misread the situation here. And she's like, oh, I am so sorry. And she apologized, and we got back into it, and she fixed herself later. And then like we had a few other things here and there, but they were really, really small, and they weren't that much of a problem. And luckily, like I said, I was very lucky to have a group that is willing to communicate that. But I saw that you raised your fingers like that, and now I'm kind of...
Well, it's interesting you mentioned like you kind of curveballs and blindsiding, because one other thing comes to mind. The first ever D&D game that I ran. Like now I'd run a couple other like TTRPG games in the past that like a homebrew fantasy system like previously, but I had very little experience just in the role of a GM in general. Like I hadn't really experienced running a game before, but I got I got like 6 or 7 people from my Magic the Gathering like group, and I sat them down to run a like a D&D 5e game based in Ravnica. This was before Guildmasters like was even a twinkle in like Wizard's Eye. Like so this was just me doing homebrew and like effectively for it. Basically, and I chose Ravnica because if you're familiar with Ravnica from the Magic the Gathering settings, it's a really, really great one for starting RPGs because it's like any class and like like ancestry combination just works, you know, because it's a big ass planet-sized city. It's diverse as hell. You can be anything.
I've been using it in Strixhaven for one of my characters' backstories.
Yeah, and I was thinking that's perfect for this. So like that'll be perfect for me because then I can let my characters do whatever they want. So in my opening session, I decided I'm going to introduce it as kind of like a heist game where they need to try and track down this like banker who's got something of import and value in a safe, like a safety deposit box in a secret location. So I'm thinking, okay, great, this will be nice and intriguey. The players will get carrot. No, I'll be interested. They proceed to like follow their mark like to his main house. But what I don't anticipate within the first hour of the first session of the first D&D game that I've ever ran is that they would then proceed to break into his house, kill him, and eat him.
What?
Yeah, I had to deal with, in my first ever game of 5e, first hour of session 1, cannibalism.
Captain, I want off this boat ride.
I didn't know where to go from there. I mean, that wasn't even the weird part because that wasn't even the craziest part of that campaign because the entire thing had to get derailed because the barbarian decided to buy a pet chicken, which they wound up spending thousands and thousands of gold and items trying to endow it with sentience. And eventually, I decided to make the chicken a focal point of the campaign, and it wound up being quite fun. The Ballad of Gorbeak is what we call them. Gorbeak was great. I had a lot of fun with it. But cannibalism. And basically from that point, I decided it was just like, okay, nothing I ever can deal with in a game anymore is going to shock me as much as that just did. You know, there was no point when I bought my snacks, sat at my table, said hi to all my friends, we're having a lovely Saturday morning. Did I expect them to all turn around and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to eat him and his servant"?
Oh my god!
The pedantic motherfucker playing the Growl Barbarian, who was an ogre, turned around and said, "Well, it's not technically cannibalism if I'm not a human."
I mean, fair, but at the same time,
Nah, it doesn't count. It counts. It counts. I don't care what it was.
cool motive is still cool motive, still murder.
Yeah. Still murder. Still murder.
So I have a question for you. How much longer are you willing to go here? Because I'm really enjoying our conversation, but I do want to know.
I mean, I am not gonna lie. I had a pretty crazy day at work, but I've got plenty of time, and I'm intending on getting up early anyway. So I'm happy to go for another 30, 40 minutes if you want to.
Yeah. So how about we go into questions now? Chat, please ask your questions. We would love to know what you want to ask our big friend over here, and yeah. So ask your questions away now, and from there we will answer as best we can.
Sweet.
Fall Mites asks, what are your thoughts on owls?
Owls?
Yes.
Like the bird?
The bird. It's an obsession with him.
I like owls. I think they're really, really cool animals. I also particularly like that their ears are asymmetrical so that they can create a 3D auditory map of their environments. They're very weird creatures, but I love them.
Fall Mite says yay. Next is from Shadow. Question: what class in D&D Call of Cthulhu do you love to play, and which class do you hate?
So in D&D 5e, my favorite class of all time, in my opinion, is the Warlock. And the reason being for me is that Warlock has role-playing built in. When you're building a Warlock, you're not just thinking, oh yeah, here's the set of abilities that I want, yada, yada, yada. No, you need to have an idea of what your relationship is with the source of your magic from the get-go. How did you obtain this? Why? What do you need to do to maintain these abilities? It's interesting. Not just that, but in terms of the mechanical elements, it's really versatile, really modular. You can build some really crazy stuff with Warlock. So love Warlock. In terms of Call of Cthulhu, I love playing mad occultists and antiquarians and people that just gaze too far into the abyss, because it's always fun to be the one that stumbles across the weird stuff first. That's my favorite way of working.
All right. Next up from Cargos, the Blood. What are your thoughts on the Necrons?
The Necrons. Oh, okay. Well, the space robots. Honestly, of all the factions in 40k, of all the villains, I'd say that they're probably... Well, I want to say villain because it's 40k, everyone's a villain. But of all the potential antagonists in 40k, the Necrons kind of bore me. I don't know why. There's something about the fact that we're gonna nod to these kind of Egyptian motifs, but it's really just a bunch of impossibly difficult to kill space robots. The Flayed were kind of interesting. And admittedly, I haven't come across them very much in terms of what I've read in the because I do read a lot of 40k. I'm 40 novels deep into the Horus Heresy, and I've read maybe 16 or 17 other novels from the contemporary 40k. I also finished the Beast Rises series. Ooh. So, but yeah. But the Necrons, never really enjoyed them as a concept.
Yeah, Necrons have their fans and everything. Most of their lore is really out of the way for 40k. Is that they existed millions of years ago, and their actions kind of don't have consequences for modern 40k, even though they're arguably the reason why the Warp Pit is the way it is now. Next up, from Aramis8, who's one of my mods, by the way. Have you tried Vampire the Masquerade? And I think I already know the
Yes!
answer.
Yes, I absolutely have tried Vampire the Masquerade, and I love the World of Darkness as a setting. I believe that obviously World of Darkness, especially if you look at some of the older material that was published in the late 80s, very, very hard to defend. Sometimes they just stumble on areas that are not okay. Like I believe at one point they had a whole supplement where like there were like IRA aligned werewolves, and that was being published like in the 90s. And I'm like, yo, even now that would be weird. But at the same time, though, I kind of understand why they do it. I like the World of Darkness because it's a great way of introducing people into the hobby if they want something serious and they want something somewhat grounded. Because for the most part, if you're playing a vampire in Vampire the Masquerade, 90% of your problems involve paying rent. You know, you need to figure out how you survive. So it's interesting to think about that. But I absolutely love Vampire. I ran a one shot for Vampire 5th edition once. That like you unfortunately ended up getting completely derailed because of somebody playing a glam rock toreador. It was really, really, really crazy. Like, and they ended up trying to do an impromptu performance in the middle of a strip club, kind of like you ignoring the main plot. But I'm hoping, praying even that when I eventually start to do my own live play, I can convince a few people to sit down and do Hunter the Vigil with me because I love Hunter. Hunter's a brilliant way of introducing people to the World of Darkness because rather than immediately having to explain to people, oh yeah, this is how Vampire the Masquerade works. Here's the Camarilla. Here's the Sabbat. Here's what you need to know about being a vampire. It's just like, no, you're a person, and you maybe know some other crazy people that think they know a lot about monsters, and pretty much your entire goal is don't get killed. Yeah, love the World of Darkness in general, though.
All right, next question for the both of us from Robot. What do you think of Dead Space classes being engineer, doctor, and security officer? Think mall cop.
Engineer, doctor, security officer. I mean, you gotta have medic as well, surely, or some
medic.
type of doctor. Yeah, you need to.
So,
there's too many doctors in Dead Space for there not to be a medic. Also, one important one, potentially a lay preacher, since we have the Unitarian church in there.
Yeah. So when I'm designing this game, is that when it comes to the classes, I'm looking at what the things in Dead Space are. There is security, there's soldier, there's medic, there's scientist, there's engineer. But my idea is that to streamline the classes, is that there's soldier, engineer, and doctor. Doctor can be like the more, oh, I can study biology, but I have no fucking idea how to put someone's arm back on. Or like engineers, like, hey, I know how. I'm like more of a hacking engineer. I could hack in doors and everything, but I'm fucked when you tell me like, can you ask me to fix an engine? And then soldiers like, I'm really good at shooting stuff.
It's interesting. My brother is actually just about to get his BE in engineering, and one of the things he was telling me about is how in order to be an engineer these days, you can't be intensely specialized. There's not really such a thing as a mechanical or electrical engineer anymore. You need to know a certain degree about both of those systems in order to do either, and then eventually you learn more important stuff. So I think an engineer in general should know at least a little bit about hacking, a little bit about electrical work, a little bit about mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
So a variety of technical and utility abilities would be good.
Which then brought me into the subclasses of engineer, hacking engineer, computer engineer, that so on and so forth. They still have the other kind of things to go for. But I also just keep the Transformers quote in mind. It's when a human's talking to the motorbike, RC is just like, RC, you're a motorcycle, but you can't figure out how to help me fix a bike. You're a human, Jack. Can you tell me how to fix a small intestine? That was the smartest comeback I've ever heard. The next question is, are you Alfarius?
Am I No, I am not Alfarius, and I honestly, I don't like the Alpha Legion.
Oh.
I don't like the Alpha Legion. Primarily because the idea of a legion with a single personality, is literally just that, oh yes, we are Alfarius. I'm bored.
You hate the operatives.
I do. And also, I find the idea of Space Marine scouts and Space Marine spies to be just a little bit dumb. I don't know why.
The book that I would tell you that would sell you on the Alpha Legion is their book in the Horus Heresy called Legion.
I've read it. I've read it extensively. I've read it 3 times actually. Because I do this thing where I finish an audiobook or an actual book, and then I will just listen to it going to sleep and hope my brain can turns out. And that is the kind of quality of in my opinion of Legion for me, is that okay, yeah, I get you like somehow a guardsman walks into like a thing and oh yeah, space marines are sneaky, and I'm like, okay, so are you telling me these guys are operating without power armor? Are they smaller than normal space marines? How the hell are they infiltrating a normal society? You know, if anything else, I remember reading Fulgrim and like or any of the other Horus Heresy books, and whenever you see from like the perspective of a normal unmodified human talking about space marine, it takes like 3 paragraphs for them to stop talking about how awesome they are. And when a
Yeah.
space marine starts talking about like their Primarch, it's a whole chapter. Done.
Oh my god, I love Fulgrim. His majestic fucking flowing hair. Oh
Oh
my
my goodness,
god.
I'm so fine. Oh my god, like did you I can't remember which novel it is, but it's the one where Fulgrim achieves apotheosis.
That
And
is
there's
Angel Exterminatus, and that I'm sad to say that is one of my favorites.
what the fuck is with like Fulgrim's like you fucking like you entryway when he's meeting up with
Oh,
it's like 7 paragraphs. Yeah, I'm
that is
done.
that is my favorite fucking thing in the whole book, and that's at the beginning of the book. Okay, so for those that don't know, in the beginning of Angel Exterminatus, we get like this brutal siege where like the Iron Warriors are besieging this Imperial fortress. They take it without a fight, and all of a sudden, Percheraba's like, "I want you all in parade formation. The Emperor's children are coming," and all of his men line up in perfect military formation, not a fucking error in it. And all they see in the distance, him and his trident, his officer corps, are just like, sir? What the fuck is that? And he's just like, give me those binoculars. And he just sees a menagerie of fucking, like, harem dancers, druggies, these Marines who are, like, coked out of their brain, and in the middle of it is Fulgrim in full-on drag, in the middle on his throne in a bathrobe. And he steps forward to his brother, bawls for everyone to see, and says, "Percherabo, my favorite brother, how have you been?" And Percherabo is like the embodiment of daddy issues that is full on like military complex. And he's like, what the fuck am I looking at? It is the great. It's 7 paragraphs long, like Socialist has said here, but oh my god, it is. It made me laugh.
I was just all I remember basically was sitting down. I was doing my job, listening to it in the background, and like by the time I finished a contract, I just turned around and I'm like, "Wait, is this still happening? It's still being described?"
Yeah, it's so fucking wild. But next question: what was the funniest immersion breaker episode to make for you?
Oh Lord, God, that's a challenge in itself. Immersion breakers. In terms of the funniest one, I think it would probably be the ones that require the hardest takes. Anything when I do my Lich King stuff is going to be really, really hard because that was going to be like funny because I need to think of it really carefully how I'm doing the takes and how that's going to sound when I start doing all the voice effects and stuff like that. But the funniest part was really when I figured out that my camera had a fault where if I angled it correctly, it would really red out the screen, and I tried to use that in order to like create the effect of it all being all evil and like brimstoney like thing. And then I discovered that my Lightroom had a color filter.
Uh-oh.
And I was just like, why have I been wearing? I spent like 2 hours filming that, like tapping my like thumb against the camera to make sure that I got the perfect like redness setting. And I was just like, wait, I could just tap this button. So, in terms of, that was probably the funniest one to film, definitely, yeah. Oh, that and actually, of course, like when lovely Dungeons and Dragons arrived as like our solar that appeared in the iron flask that our bard was carrying. Like that was funny just because Dungeons and Dragons is amazingly talented. It's unfair that she has so few followers. If any of you, by the way, happen to be on TikTok and are interested in cosplay, please give her a follow. Duchess and Dragons.
If you want, you can share her link in my Discord. I have invited you in.
Oh, I will do. I absolutely will do.
Sweet. I always encourage it. And by the way, if anyone has any TikTokers or YouTubers that they really think should have bigger an audience, I would love for them to come on and talk. This is the whole point of this, is that I bring on TikTokers who are my size, a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, or way smaller than me, give them a voice, let them talk. I want to build a community because
Well,
like
here's the interesting thing about Duchess. Actually, like she only has she's got less than 10,000 followers. But get this, her Pike cosplay was actually featured on the Critical Role official website.
no shot. What?
I'm not kidding. Yeah,
Holy fuck!
yeah, it's criminal that she has such a small following. She's amazingly talented.
Nah,
Like,
nah,
um,
you share
yeah,
that fucking profile on my Discord.
I
I beg and
absolutely
plead.
will.
But
I absolutely will.
back to the questions. Shadow asks, "What is your favorite kill, total party kill, or death? D&D or Call of Cthulhu?"
Oh, favorite death. That's a very interesting question, actually. I've as a GM, I've actually I don't really have a particularly high body count in terms of characters that I've actually killed. I've often tried to avoid doing that unless something really, really stupid happens. In terms of the wildest death that I can think of, I mean, one was me picking up that book and immediately being hammered by neurotoxin. Um, but if I think of wildest death. Hmm. Ah. No, actually, that doesn't really qualify as a death. Not a lot of my characters have actually been, properly you've done it. It's very odd. I have very few experiences with player kills and total party kills. Mostly because most of my GMs just don't do that. It's not a bad thing though. Eventually, if I can do a TPK, I'm sure it will eventually happen. If I ever run Hunter, it most likely will happen. If I ever run Call of Cthulhu, it will most likely happen.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, but I got the best near miss. If I had to think of a good one.
All
Yeah.
right.
So I had a game basically, and the premise was that an animator had gone missing in 1920s New York. This was a Call of Cthulhu game for 7th edition. And the party of investigators essentially managed to track this animator to his house way out in New York State, up in the Catskills, beautiful kind New York countryside. They are then proceeding. They then proceed to start looking for potential traces of him, and it's just his wife in the house by herself, who hasn't seen her husband in potentially weeks. And they go around into the kind of back garden area, and it's there described to them. Oh yeah, do a little spot hidden check, and they're like, oh, I got a really good success. They're like, oh, great. So you find a finger in the bushes, and I'm thinking they find, and like, okay, and here's where they start packing their bags and running. No, they go into the house and they start raking through stuff while this other person whom they've not yet decided is actually whether they're potentially dangerous or not, as kind of watching them. And then at one point it gets really, really crazy because they open up a cupboard and they see just oh yeah, I described there's a loaded 12 gauge shotgun in there because it's the countryside in New York in the 20s. And they're like, huh, okay, close the cupboard door. And she's like, you're not doing anything else? She's like, no. Okay. Then they're just like, oh, I have found a secret door. Yeah, I have found a secret room in this particular section. Just that the occupier of the house is directly in front of you as you explain this to your colleagues, right? And they're like, yep, I know. And okay. So while you're opening up the secret door, completely ignoring the body part that's in the back garden and the lonely woman who doesn't have a corroborating alibi, you then proceed. You are then shocked to discover that she takes the shotgun from the cupboard and proceeds to try and kill you all. Because I put up so many red flags indicating that this person is dangerous, and you completely ignored them.
No, don't worry. She's one old lady. We can handle her.
Yeah. But then basically I decided to make it even crazier for them because, unbeknownst to them, because this is one thing they couldn't have anticipated even if they tried. She was actually a disguised Shogga.
Oh God.
Yeah. Somebody tried to punch, which was really hilarious.
So
there's a canon. I didn't know this was a thing, but in the expanded kind of works of the Cthulhu mythos contributed by other authors besides Lovecraft, there's apparently something called a Shoggoth Lord that's capable of looking like a human.
Yep. So the funniest near death for me was back in that Cthulhu campaign for Pathfinder that I played in. Like I said, we were back in the asylum. We were going to the first boss fight, and before the first boss, there's this crowd of cultists with this old lady sitting at the back. And I'm thinking, okay, deal with the cultists. The old lady is probably a different thing entirely. I'll get to her when I
Never.
can.
Oh no.
No, I shouldn't have discounted her because I crit a cultist. before I did that, she said, "Keep it down, Sonny." And I'm just like, she's all that. Who cares? Critic cultist, kill him instantly. And she goes, "I told you to keep it down." And she is armed with a burlap sack. And I'm thinking, oh, she's going to use like an improvised weapon to beat the shit out of me with it. It's like I'm breaking it or something. No. She closes a 60-foot gap between me and her and proceeds to, and I will describe as my DM has told me, fold the sack over my head and pull the rope as tight as she fucking can.
Oh,
and I'm
you're
like,
getting bagged.
And I'm like, okay, what? Roll me a con save. What? Roll me a con save. I fail. Now roll me a strength save. You are stuck in a grapple, sir. What? And
just being choked out by an old woman with a sack.
This old fucking crone was a fucking menace to society when she was younger. She was known as the Widow Strangler in the game. And I'm like, oh no. She drops me to 0 HP by strangling me.
I just remembered a character death. Actually. So... Oh god, no! This was actually this was the game that nearly made me not play RPGs again, of any kind. Essentially, okay, like my character in this one, this was some. I'm not going to get into the specifics of why this was a particularly bad game, but just my character ended up dying in the sense that I had been kidnapped by deep ones after being abandoned by the people that I was investigating something with.
Oof.
Yeah, the deep ones then proceed to try and cast some magic to basically make me drown in mid-air. Like there'll be seawater and bits of seaweed coming out of my mouth. I'm about to die. However, they horrifically botch up their cast, and instead, one of the deep ones drowns, which the deep ones didn't even know was possible because wait, can't we breathe water? What the hell? But they're like, okay. So I'm just like, okay, so what happens? I assume they're just gonna cut my throat. They're like, no. The DM then describes how they basically used this and decided, humans must not be appropriate sacrifices to Dagon and Hydra anymore. Okay, we'll make him look like more like a deep one. So they then proceed to do some amateur plastic surgery using the scary-ass ritual dagger, carving off my ears, my eyelids, trimming the tips of my fingernails so that they resemble claws, carving gills into my neck. Then they kill me. I'm just like, why did you even describe that? You could have just cut to black and and the same result would have happened.
Yeah, pretty much. Next question. Question for both of us. If you had to live in the 40K universe, I would never.
Oh god, it's not this question.
But could choose to be any species, which would it be and why? Orcs.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna go for a human on a tau-occupied world.
That is an appropriate response. I choose orc because in the shitty universe of Warhammer 40K, the orcs are the most successful race because they just don't give a shit. And to be honest, if I'm going to live in a shit universe, I might as well be the shit disturber.
Indeed.
And I do understand your choice too because humans on Tau worlds tend to have a better life.
Yeah. Also, if I'm going to I'm also of the opinion that I'm going to be part of any kind of faction, in a world like 40K. I want to be part of the faction whose weaponry focuses on dealing the most damage possible to a target that's as far away as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why fight? Why would I want to get into melee combat with demons and Tyranids and Gene Stealers? Just give me a gun. Give me a mech suit. Even Lake mech, but I'll take the title over anybody else.
Yeah, not gonna lie. Better decision. What are your thoughts on the Fantasy Flight game called Nemesis? I've never heard of this, by the way.
Neither have I. I've never heard of it. Fantasy Flight, I've seen a bunch of stuff that they produced. Fine company. But I've never heard of Nemesis.
Alright. Yeah, I'm the same way. Sorry, Cargo.
Sorry.
What's your I can't believe it worked moment?
Yeah. I've got a couple of those, but the one that immediately comes to mind was a recent event in a 5e game. So my character in this long-running campaign, I play out with a bunch of TikTokers, including Bananaskins. Not sure if you've ever heard of him, an artist from here in the UK. it was basically like my character was this like completely wasted bard who was on a pleasure cruise that was rapidly sinking because something had kind of like broke into the hull and was now eating passengers. We later discovered that our DM had decided to pit us against a sharktopus, like an actual honest to god shark octopus hybrid. So basically, okay, like at this point, I am wrapped up in its tentacles. I've got 3 or 4 hit points left. I'm probably going to die next round if I don't do something. I'm thinking, okay, am I going to cast like I haven't got Misty Step, I haven't got anything that can get me out of this thing's grasp, and I realize I don't need to do any of that. And they're like, huh? Okay, this is going to take me 2 turns, but it's going to be worth it. And they're like, okay. First of all, I'm going to take the dagger that's in my thing, the tentacle that's currently wrapping me up, suspended in the air, about to crush me and kill me. I'm going to stab into it, so you're making an attack. No, because I want to make a very shallow cut. And they're like, why? Just like, well, I want to start drinking this thing's blood. And they're like, why? And I'm like, all will be revealed. So I use my first action to get a taste of sharktopus blood. And then basically I asked my DM, okay, quick question. So we see the head of the sharktopus creature poking out of the water. Yeah? Are its gills beneath the surface? And he's like, yes, they are. And I'm like, okay, I cast Prestidigitation. And they're like, huh? One of the listed effects recommended from Prestidigitation, because it's a versatile cantrip that basically lets you do anything. Like, it's really basically, if it's a harmless sensory effect, then you can just do it. But one of the effects that's listed as an example is that you can flavor, scent, like a warm, cool, or like I'm doing thing to a cubic foot of material, including seawater. So I said, okay, so the section right next to that, the section of water right next to that sharktopus's gills is now going to taste exactly like sharktopus blood. Yeah. So essentially, this thing goes from thinking, oh, I've got prey in my grasp, to thinking, wait a second, I've just lost 16 liters of blood. To which it then proceeds to freak the fuck out and drops me. I need to heal myself and escape.
Gotta say, it's a creative way of doing it.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most creative casts that I've done in 5e. 5e in particular is a fun one for stories for thinking your feet, because again, it's somewhat restrictive. The action economy does limit your ability to think of really wild shit to do, but sometimes you can think of, wait, so the effect allows me to do what? Or did I do this?
So my moment of that is that back in Pathfinder, we did a different campaign called King War for the Throne. Mm-hmm. And during that, we were trying to find the person that hired us because they got kidnapped by the bad guys, essentially. And I managed to infiltrate this warehouse where the person that kidnapped them was basically running. And my party, unbeknownst to my character, just starts causing a ruckus. And my character just rolls with it instantly. He's like, oh, they're doing that, so I should go alert the guy because I'm one of his minions. And I go up to the door, I pound on it like, sir, we're under attack! And the guy opens up the door. There's an assassin in there, and this leader guy, and he's like, oh, yes, come in, minion. And then presses my head up against the glass. He's like, watch as my men tear these fuckers apart. I didn't know that our Shadow Strike assassin had followed me in by, hiding in the shadows. And they start attacking this guy, and at this point I'm like, yeah, no, cover's blown, let's do this. And I start fighting them too. Like, it's me and this guy and our assassin just beating the shit out of this guy, and we both got advantage. And then the assassin does Stunning Fist.
Oh dear, I can already hear this. If that's anything like Stunning Strike in 5e, I can see where this was going.
Yep, the boss fails his con save. He is stunned for an entire round. And by the way, we are fighting in an overseer's office in a warehouse. So that's the one that's up top. There's a good 40-foot drop. And the window's already broken. And so
just like...
Yeah, I was just like... I just look at my DM and say, okay, so it's my turn, and he's gonna, break the Stunning Fist next round, right? And he's like, yep. I take his head, and I just throw him out the window.
You defenestrated them. Good job.
And it's just his legs are broken. And I'm like, yeah. Oh, that campaign was so good. I gotta tell people about that campaign more. Last question though,
Mm.
because I do know you have to get going here.
All right, good.
As a DM, have you ever taken a scene from a show, cartoon, anime, or extra for your campaign?
All the fucking time. All the fucking time. All I'm doing is hunting out source material to inspire potential game ideas. That's all I ever do. And I mean, when I can eventually come up with my own kind of new content, it's fine. Sometimes it's just a great exercise in terms of learning plot structure to just study how you would try and map a particular a plot line for an episode or a film or a novel into a game with pieces kind of laid out, and then you're thinking, okay, you're going to rearrange these components in certain ways so that you get something a little bit different. Kind of how George R. R. Martin describes the whole idea of rearranging the furniture in science fiction and fantasy. Like, but yeah, all the fucking time. Recently, for immersion breakers, the main inspiration I usually do is historical sources. So I watch a lot of extra history, a lot of puppet history, a lot of really random shit. Just think of some really wild stuff that I can potentially use to inspire the main game. Obviously, love Discworld and stuff like that because it's all absurd and really, really weird and poking fun at traditional tropes and stuff like that. But you can't really make fun of tropes unless you study the tropes first. You need to understand why they function, why they're popular, why certain tropes deserve to be poked fun of and lampooned, and why others are maybe more mainstays in fantasy. So yeah, all the time I use in pop culture things. And on several occasions, I ran a full Discworld campaign at one point. I've ran campaigns inspired by stuff as vague as the Manchurian Candidate. I ran a Warhammer Fantasy game based on that. That was really, really fun because my main DM, Billy, absolutely loved political intrigue games. So whenever I wrote one, he was really, really impressed with it. I at one point did a whole game that was based on effectively the papal election that put Rodrigo Borgia into power. So if you've ever seen the Borgias, that's a great example of it. Just I do all kinds of weird shit. I'm in with pop culture stuff right now. What I'm kind of doing is I'm looking at a lot of analog horror, a lot of cosmic horror, a lot of psychological thrillers like Mindhunter, because I'm trying to write up my new series that's based kind of based on the idea of okay, what if you had training tapes that taught you how to survive in horror scenarios, and that's in the shtick of it. So I'm just looking at all kinds of horror to get ideas of what tropes are recurring, what tropes need to be poked fun at, what tropes are mainstays. So yeah, I all the time use popular culture in my games.
Yeah. So when Strixhaven, going back to that, my campaign that I'm currently running right now, for the Wizard Towers game, for the finals, I was like, how the fuck do I make this more interesting? And Planet Buster Music, I wish he was here. Bless that person. Um, I took this from Bionicle 2.
I was watching your interview actually.
So
So long since I've been a Bionicle lore.
if you guys don't know, in Bionicle 2, there's a scene in the movie where the Toa have to prove themselves to the Matoran and Taraga Duma. And essentially, it's you got to get from one end of the arena to the other while the arena is actively trying to fucking kill you. And it's basically these pillars keep coming out like oceans, and it's just supposed to represent currents and struggles, and that you have to be a team and get over it. The Toa just get absolutely fucked. And I wanted to use that for the finals. Is that there's these people in the referee table who have a full scale of the map, and these things that are moving around represent the players. And I roll a d6 for the players, re-rolling 5 6 because I only had 4, and then if the dice hits one of them or another player on the other team, because I rolled for both teams, then it would hit that player and launch them, because it goes 30 feet in the air and it launches them if they fail either athletics or acrobatics. And if they fail the save, they get launched 30 feet and they just land somewhere else. If they pass it, they just stay on top of the pillar and have a height advantage. It was a really, really fun thing to build. But we are out of time. Thank you so much, Socialist, for coming on and talking with me about magic, D&D, horror, all that kind of stuff. I want to bring you back on sometime in the future. I will work that out with you in private. But again, thank you so much for coming on.
It's no problem at all. I'm really happy to be here, and I was honestly really shocked to get the invite. I've actually been following you since I was on less than 10K actually.
Oh.
So I was amazed. Yeah, man, I love your Warhammer content. Yeah. So like, I was really happy to I'm really happy that I managed to get to sit down and do this. And thank you so much. I really hope we can do it again sometime.
Oh yeah, totally. I do want to, but yeah, like I want to invite more people on. I want to bring on more smaller TikTokers or people close to my size. That way we could just have fun conversations, talk about whatever the hell we want, talk about our passions, why we do the things that we do. Uh, but yeah, like thank you again so much, and you please have a good rest and don't die.
Oh, I will. But tomorrow, my plan is basically to get up early and then get federally fucked up. It's been a hell of a week.
All right,
Uh,
you
right.
have a
See you
a
later,
good night,
okay?
friend. Good night.
Adios.
All right, that was a real fun interview. Announcer, would you be willing to interview with Eldritch Author at some point? I don't know who that is. Usually I would like people to link who they want me to talk to, and then if they're following me, I can message them. If they're not following me, I can't. And and it's hard to talk to people because of that boundary. And I've been trying to like get Chris D&D to come talk to me, and we just it just hasn't. It's constantly falling through. But yeah, hmm. Are you in my server, Cargos? Who does D&D stuff, and he's a swell guy. Great interview. Okay, if you could link his channel in my Discord, I'll check him out and see if I can message him. But yeah, what did you guys think? I want to know what you guys think because that was really fun. Uh, Big Fat Socialist is a really fun person. I'm very fascinated with their work since I was made aware of him, and like just hearing his opinions and such is just like I want to talk to him again. I want to know more. I want to just shoot the shit and everything. It's really fun doing these interviews because like you get to know people that are in your sphere that you can't fucking hang out with in real life, and that sucks. I would love to hang out with these people in real life, and you fucking can't because he's across the fucking ocean, and Plant Buster's all the way down the states, and it's like these are really fun. I was going to take a nap, but I watched Steam because good interview, and I will now stop yelling. Aw. Oh, that guy! Oh! Fuck! He's a little big. I don't think he'll message me back. I think I'm a little too small for him. I can try. He doesn't follow me back. I know that for certain. But I can try. But yeah, I'm very interested in. I think this is why VR chat is a thing, so you can hang out with people far away. Yeah, but there's a difference for me when it comes to hanging out. I don't like. I'm not a big fan of like doing things online and meeting people in VR chat. I wanna be with them personally, and because it's a lot more fun to do that. It's a lot more interesting. You can have a good laugh, and there's a different connection when you're just doing it for people far away and people close to home. But yeah, oh my god, that was so much fun. I know hardly anything on the Call of Cthulhu game. I know some things, not a lot of things, and that's mostly because I know Cthulhu shit. But I am very fascinated by the Call of Cthulhu system, and I do want to learn it. God. But yeah, who else would you guys like to see on the show here? Because, like, I want to bring on more people. I'm very interested to hear you guys' opinions. Not just our boy here, Eldritch Author. Because they're probably a very busy cosplayer. And they make really good costumes. And, my god. No, shut the fuck up, TikTok. Shut the fuck up, TikTok. Shut the fuck up. Boss should do a stream where he the DM. Organizing that is a pain in the ass because everyone's time zones are different. Ah! Maybe Dingo or Puffin Forest. Guys, reasonable within the realm of my pond, please. Like, a little more reasonable than that. I can't get Dingo and Puffin Forest. Because, like, they're extremely busy. And I can't message them directly. They're way out of my fucking pond. And it'll just look like, oh, this channel with 50,000 subscribers is trying to leech off of us. No, the idea of this is that it's people close to, equal to, or really below me to help them. And plus, it can be a good conversation because I'm bored out of my fucking skull. And talking to people is fun. Those kinds of creators are well out of my brain. Well out of my range. Xaninator? I don't know who that is. Like, guys, if you want me to see these people, you gotta link them in the Discord. Which, by the way, before I end the stream, so there's a few things that I want to make clear, is that there will be changes coming to the Discord. Discord will now not be Patreon only. The incentive was that you come into the community, you pay to get into the community, but it's a one-time payment, and that's kind of dumb. So I'm changing it to the different tiers now get you different things. Like the highest tier that I'm going to make soon, when the art is done, is Executive Minion, which is basically you get brand new stickers every time I get new ones. They'll be sent out to you, kind of a thing. And I just need to figure out how that works first, and then I'll get it done. But I am going to make the Patreon, I am going to make the Discord open to more people. It's still going to be invite only, because I still need to vet people, and I don't want problem people coming in and being assholes in my community, or being problematic. I also want these creators that don't have a place of their own to finally have a community where they can interact with people that enjoy them and love them and care for them, and actually be a place that is safe and comfortable for these creators that don't have my time and patience. Because, like, I know a few of them don't have Discord servers. I know a few of them don't have a way for their community to interact with them, and I want that for them. His schedule is currently very busy right now, but at some point he might be able to talk with you once his schedule frees up. That is the Eldritch author who I am talking about. I know who you're talking about, Cargos. But yeah, that's the thing that I want for this to be, is that I want this part of my Twitch streams where I interview these TikTokers and hopefully YouTubers and other Twitch streamers sometime, to be a place where they can just chill out, have a good conversation, talk about stuff that they want to talk about. Whether it be gaming, politics, and we didn't talk about politics today. I made that abundantly clear before we began, because what happened in the States right now, me and him don't have the right to talk about it. Not because we're from a different country, but because we aren't the people that are affected by what's going on. Have you interviewed Dumpstat? Somebody? I just started these, dude. I just started these. I need... I'm trying so hard to, like, talk to these people. Ah! I want to do more of these, though. These are very fun, and I want to have Planet Buster back. I want to have Socialist back. Maybe have them both out at the same time if we can work it out. But yeah, I want these people to have a home. And we will, and And I will get to it when I get to it, and we will get more people on, I promise. It's just a matter of me being able to fucking message them. Because TikTok is dumb and smart in the same way, is that unless you're following them, I don't know who you are, and links don't work in my chat. So anyway, I will figure it out. I will check out these TikTokers and everybody that you send me. And we will go from there. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much. Please don't forget to donate bits, donate subscribers. I would very much like more people to be in these conversations. I am very excited to do this again and again when we can talk about it. Oh, it's just a straight up bot. Oh. What? But yeah, so we will get to it when we get to it. But for now, what is the plans coming up? So, plans coming up. We have Monster Hunter Sunbreak coming out on the 30th. That is 6 days away, people. And I will be busting my balls in that game. So a few things are going to be put on hold for a little bit while I do that. Because, oh my god, it's such a big game. While I'm doing that, though, I will be working in the background to get more people to come on to the stream and talk, hang out. Preferably, I would like some more not as well represented voices such as black content creators or female content creators because they get shit on all the time, so on and so forth, and just give them a platform and give them a voice. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate you all so very much. Please donate subscribers, bits, whatever. Helping the stream, supporting me, keeps this content going, keep it flowing. And that way I can upgrade my stuff, so that way I can make better content for you guys, so on and so forth. Please, wipe your ass, wash your hands, wear a mask. Be safe out there, friends. And remember, please stand up. Please stand up when we need to, but sit down when the other person needs to talk. I love you all so much. Good night, everybody!